You other mayors want to comment on that? I know you're not.
I was a city guy for 28 years, although I was the guy that took on Marshall when he tried to annex out Tommy Hart Shopping Center. I represented cities forever, and I tend to agree with David somewhat. I think that there's a lot of thought that will consolidate government, everything's going to be okay, but you got issues like we got elected jailers, elected sheriffs, take on your jailers, Marshall, but you got elected folks who are going to maintain those offices. It's very hard to save money in government the way we're structured as a state under our Constitution. I think we had a constitutional convention that allowed certain things to happen. Maybe there's some value, but the level of service required for citizens in cities typically is different than the level of services required for folks who live outside the city. It's not that they don't need police protection and they don't need fire protection, but it's not the type kind of urban setting that requires quite the same level of service. There's always a little higher level of service within the city. So tax structures usually are always going to be differentiated between your urban areas and your non-urban areas anyway. I think what is important is that city and county work together, and I think it's really important. I think we struggle with that off and on, and there's no question that Dr. Walters is right about that. And there were times I was taking on the county, times the county was taking on us, there were times that we were working things out, and there was times we weren't working things out. And those kind of conflicts will probably continue. It's unfortunate, but I just think that's sort of the nature of the beast. I will say, I think it's unfortunate that the way we try to district our magistrates is such that they're pie-shaped, and so we get very limited amount of representation for the city out of a magistrate, and we get one magistrate, Bob Walters, who served when I was, and he's here I think, served when I was mayor, worked very hard to try to help the city. It was sometimes an uphill struggle. We've had that same issue historically, but there are differences of functions. County government was intended originally to serve, to provide the state services to the citizens of the community. So that's why you go get your license plates there, that's why you get your driver's license there, that's why you get all that kind of stuff there. That was its intent. City governments were intended to provide fire, police, and all those levels of service, street, all those kinds of things, street lights, sidewalks, that kind of thing.
I sort of agree with you, except I ride by the police station up there all day long with 8 cars sitting there, and you go by the fire station out there on going by Kroger, and there's 25 standing there. You know, Charles and I've had this conversation before. You couldn't get all the equipment that the city and county had on the football field. It wouldn't fit there. And it looks like to me there's some way to work together so we don't have that. And there's way too much money being spent on equipment.
I don't disagree with that.
And there needs to be ways.
Well, the fire districts are set up as taxing districts.
Are the ones that do the best job.
Fire districts are set up as taxing districts, and Ted can comment, you've represented them for years. They have, it's a hard beast to unravel if you're trying to unravel them and deal with them.
That's probably the hardest one.
And at the same time, you know, they serve a very important function. So it is a difficult beast, and you see a lot of issues around. They get so much tax dollars, and obviously once they get it, I guess they're going to spend it. Yet there are ways to go. There's no question about it. If we could find ways to restructure government in a way that made sense, I'd be all for it. But I'm not sure I know a clear answer given our current Constitution and given the current the way special districts are formed in this state. There are a lot of, you know, you don't get rid of the special districts by merging government. And so you still got your fire districts, you still got all that stuff. So how do you deal with all that is a real big problem. And I know that it sounds like a simple answer, but it's really, I don't think
it's not simple. It's extremely.
I think having a cooperative, I mean, we're very fortunate in this city. We have a parks department that works together. We have a water and sewer commission right now that works pretty county-wide until you get to Simpsonville. That's what we're starting to make. And we work with it. It's just there down there. And we've got a pretty, you know, well coordinated systems within in our city and county in a lot of respects. You know, dispatch, 911 services, a whole lot of things are coordinated and work together. Solid waste. So a lot of things are worked together in this county, a lot more than you might. A lot of things you don't think about. The kind of things you don't really all want to think about sometimes, but there are a lot of things that work together, and I think we're very fortunate to have that. I do think there are other things if we could ever figure out how to break down the political barriers and the who's in charge barriers and who gets the money barriers. You could do some other good things, but I don't know. There'd have to be some legislation in some cases.
But Marshall, I know Neil's traveled, especially Neil with his job at the league. We're eons ahead of most other communities across the state. It's not even close in terms of our relationships with city and county governments, because we deal with a lot of things that the interlocal agreement we have today, you know, Simpsonville's in that, Shelbyville's in that, counties in that. Neil mentioned 911. I mean, there are a lot of things that we're way ahead of the ballgame in terms of working together.
Yeah, let me see if Don wants to weigh in on that, Heritage Government. You want to weigh in on it?
No, I think, and we just mentioned like merged services, I think merged services would help out. I just know for one example, doesn't sound like much, but it was in the fall, it was time to buy salt, and I said, well, why can't the city and the county go together? Instead of buying 100 tons, maybe buy 300 tons and get it so much cheaper. Well, and I'd get it all mixed up. That just didn't work. To me, it made sense. And if you're blacktopping the street, say the county's blacktopping one, and then we need one, go to them, and maybe while the equipment and everything's there, you could get it at a more reasonable price, and you know, let them come in and just do one on the street.